FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
To say of the dramatic changes that are taking place in the global economy that they're not going to change or look any different if we just stick our heads in the sand or just sort of pull the comfort blankets over our head and hide from these changes and think that we can re-emerge with the whole thing, you know, passing us by so that we can just resume our life and work where we left off however many years before, because it ain't going to be like that. These changes are here to stay. Hiding from them isn't going to change them. I mean, creating a sort of brick protective wall around our economy is not going to mean that the competitive pressures and challenges on us are going to look any different in years or decades to come. Actually, they're going to be worse and more serious, partly because, you know, these emerging economies are going to continue emerging, and for all the reasons I've argued, I think that's a good thing for the world economy and something that we should embrace. But more, as importantly for us, if we try to hide from this competition behind protective walls, all that happens is that we decline behind those walls. You know, we sink further into an inexorable relative economic decline, because we're not having the advantages of the competitive stimulus that keeps us dynamic and on our toes. It means we're not responding to the changes in world markets by producing new goods and new services differently and more competitively and better. We're just sort of hiding instead. That's no answer. All it means is staving off, possibly by a number of years, the decline in employment and economic competitiveness, which will be inevitably the result of our trying to shelter and hide from these changes that are taking place in the world. But there's another very important caveat. I don't believe that the policies of openness, of sort of liberal economics that I advocate are sustainable unless we get our social systems in place and our domestic policies right to enable individuals and communities to make those adjustments, to make those changes that they need to do in order to come to terms with the impact of globalization on our economies and on our jobs. And that means not the sort of state stepping in and sort of taking over our enterprises or trying to sort of control an economy in a sort of, you know, Russian style, old Russian style, Chinese sort of way. It means government policy, the state being there to give people a helping hand to make those changes, meeting the costs of adjustment when they need at different points in their life cycle. I mean, we do it for kids when we send them to school. What do we do for people in their 40s facing premature redundancy, or in their 50s forced into retirement? Are we helping those people? Now, do we have an education and a training system that enables people to re-equip themselves with new confidence, new skills, new aptitudes to take on the new jobs that have been created in our economies? No, we don't do that nearly well enough. We don't do it well enough in Europe, and you do it worse in the United States. So what we're asking people to do is to take on the pain of individual adjustment, whilst incidentally they're seeing people generating telephone number figures in salaries and bonuses because the rewards to capital are far, far outstripping the rewards to labour in the way in which our economies are functioning. And that's not a criticism of, to use a term, speculators in the economy. I'm not joining in criticism of speculators. Speculation is a natural, ordinary part of the capitalist system. But we've got to face the fact that when people look at, you know, the small number of individuals who are reaping a huge personal harvest in the form of personal incomes from globalization, whilst, what did you call it, Joe Soap, you know, in the street, is barely able to make ends meet and finds life a real struggle and a real burden because they're facing most desperate insecurity in their jobs. That's a sort of unequal society and set of political conditions that are ripe for disaster, not for sustaining economic openness, but feeding the populism and the protectionism which some politicians delight in exaggerating and encouraging, for their own political advancement, but which people are prey to because they're so darn sick and worried about what the future is holding. Now, we've got to show that we are on their side, that there is an equitable globalization that we can shape and manage and have a public policy response to, because if we don't, we shouldn't be surprised by the backlash that is heading our way.